Even after years of bans and tariffs to stop China from being the world's biggest trader, the country's goods have been exported to never-before-seen numbers. In October 2024 on their own, exports grew to $39.6 billion, which is the highest amount in 27 months. With a 12.7% year-over-year rise, the most growth in over 2 years, this rise has pushed China's trade surplus getting close to a new high of $1 trillion for the year. And experts say this growth to global companies is speeding up order ahead of expected higher taxes if Donald Trump becomes president when Trump's new term starts. Economists they thought exports would grow by 7% in the fourth quarter, increasing the total annual exports to 3.54 trillion yen, which is more than the record that was set in 2022. These recent events bring attention to the limited trade hurdles that are put in place through the US and other countries, as much as 25% more for items over $300 billion worth of goods from China during Trump's. China's export machine has had a rough start. Not only survived the deal but did very well in it. The trade imbalance with China has grown from $621 billion in 2018 to $773 billion in 2019 in 2023. Which shows that tariffs have not achieved what they set out to do. How strong China's export industry is draws attention to how complicated global dynamics of trade and brings up questions about how well taxes work and sanctions as tools for managing the economy. China is continuing to grow its global trace of trade. The community has to dealing with trade gaps by more complicated and helpful plans for China's export growth since the start of the new millennium shows the growth of a global economy superpower. During this time, exports have driven the growth of the country's economy, changed the way its industries work and changed what it does in international trade. China's exports hit a new high in October 2024 were partly caused by progress in artificial knowledge and technologies that go with it. Cutting-edge AI goods, such as smart robots and software solutions for gadgets, have increased demand around the world. China is becoming a bigger star in AI company and how well it can do fast international markets for high-tech goods. Depot. We also use the strength of the newest technology to make important and interesting movies for you. After 7 p.m. we've been making YouTube movies for years. Learn about how much goes on, things that most people don't see behind the scenes, the writing of the study script after creation, editing, and making of the best title for the explanation and thumbnails that are used to make a. We recently found a YouTube video that a tool that changes the game in video AI, and with AVV3 is the most recent version of it. Soon, it's going to change everything. Making material. Nido AI v3 brings advanced generating features that allow you can make whole movies from just interesting stories, can serve as text prompts, from useful material to beautiful pictures. It gives you a lot of ideas. Chances, it's like having power, say, of a director in your hands. If I want to make a short cyberpunk movie about a robot that wants to get away from truth in the neon labyrinth of Neo Tokyo, I can just type in a text, ask them to make a 1-minute film of the story of a robot in a futuristic world setting that wants to get away from the cell in Neo Tokyo's neon labyrinth, a place where the line between man and there was a robot that machine blurs. Nexus was born in a dirty back alley workshop. As you can see, does not just create clips, it makes full finished videos that are ready to be posted on. The fact that it stands out on social networks a lot different from other tools like the things we love, a Runway or Sora, is that you can post a 30-second video of your own voice, let Nvidia AI copy it and then use the voice that the AI made for your video project. If you want to see there, you can start with the latest version today for free, but you have to pay to clone record your words and make movies without a stamp. Then I strongly suggest that getting their paid version for just $20 a month and use our special code can help you make twice as many videos different for the first month. Credits. Nido i3 tools will be open to everyone in just a few weeks with their own narrating tools like voice cloning videos with your own voice. Here is a detailed list of all of China's exports path shown by important milestones, composition of exports and trade partnerships and popular styles in the early 2000s. The 2000, the start of a boom in China's. The amount of exports was $23.09 billion, which is 20.89% of in terms of GDP. During this time, the next step in China's entry into the global places that were made easier by its membership in the World Trade Organization, WTO. In 2001, becoming a member gave China more getting into international markets, providing incentives for foreign business and encouraging the growth of exports-focused industries. In the mid-2000s, more quickly between 2000 and 2005, China's goods exported tripled to 77,334 billion, which is 33.83600. Exports were at a $1.25 trillion, which is 35.43% of GDP, as demand over the Chinese goods went up in 2010 and stayed up Growth during problems. Even though they are facing pressure from the 2008 world financial crisis, China's exports quickly went up again. By the value of exports hit $2.46 trillion in 2014. Making for 2,351% of GDP. The country changed by raising the value chain that makes more advanced goods like tech and machines. By 2020 they went up even more, to $2.72 billion. Thousand or China's SWIFT helped 8.59% of GDP. Getting better after the COVID-19 pandemic. The years 2020 have been a time of China had growth that broke all records. In 2023 China's exports hit a record high, amounts reaching $3.513 trillion despite a small drop of 5.5% from the changing from the previous year to 2024. Exports have been strong with economics. $3.548 trillion is what they think will happen. Strong desire is what's causing this growth. In fields like technology and building cars, when the time comes to send hardware and make up, a lot of things depend on machinery. China's main exports are things like its built-in circuit smartphones and equipment for making calls, constantly at the top of export charts. This sector shows how China has changed from being a low-cost producer to China is a center for making high-tech goods. Kept being the leader in textiles and clothing, selling everything from simple clothes to high-end fabrics. The country has used its advanced manufacturing skills and economies of size to take over the world market. Even though competition from places like Bangladesh and Vietnam in the past few years, the car industry has become an important addition to China. Is now one of the biggest exporters of electric cars. From brands like BYD and NIO are getting ground in this growth. Fits with foreign markets. China wants to be the leader in many areas. Green China also sends a lot of different tools. Variety of goods, such as medicines, metals used in market goods, medical tools. Its wide range of goods has made the economy more able to handle changes in world demand. Trade partnerships are important part of China's economy. The United States has a long history of being one of China's biggest trade partners. Friends, but there are trade problems such as putting taxes on goods while Trump was in office have made this relationship more difficult. Despite these problems, the US is still an important great market for goods with a lot of value like tech and machinery. In the European Union, Germany has been an important trade partner for exports to the EU have been mostly about machinery, cars and parts for industry. The EU-China trade has stayed the same. Strong, despite some political disputes about trade with other countries, has grown a lot, which means the area one of China's busiest trade routes together with the regional comprehensive. The business deal that was signed in 2020 has strengthened business ties even more, making it easier for things to move and services. China's growing business ties with Africa, making up the global south. Some parts of Asia and Latin America have huge investments have helped it grow. As part of programs like the Belt and BR infrastructure or the road initiative, projects like roads, ports, and rails have made it easier to connect places and help trade. One great example is the 3,600 megawatt port in Shank, Peru, meant to make a straight trade route to Asia, which helps the South as a whole. These projects go hand in hand in the North America along with attempts to get resources, as China puts a lot of money into oil mining, oil and gas businesses to get raw materials, things that its factories need. Africa has been a big deal for countries like Guinea, Nigeria, and South Africa, giving people important goods like rare earths and crude oil rocks. Let's stop for a moment. If you've liked the video so far, right, please do me a favor and hit the like button. Button helps us reach more people. And giving your feedback or thoughts in even more damage is done by the comments. Thank you for seeing. Let's go back now. Changes in trade amount and variety. China does business with the global south. Slowly went up with Latin America by itself, making for 136.34 in Africa. China has become the biggest trade partner for selling things like machinery, tech, and textiles, bringing in resources and agriculture goods and sources of energy. This by diversifying, China has been able to stay strong in spite of changes in world market over the past few years. China has greatly increased its power in Latin America, is better than usual trade with countries like the US and invest in the region's wealth of resources has made it an important part of China's strategic country goals. Like Brazil and Argentina has grown more dependent on about trade and infrastructure in China. Chinese companies are making investments dominate important areas, such as green electricity and technology. What China did to build a new multinational shifting of the BRICS bloc, which includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is one of the most important parts of China's plan for trade around the world. China and other BRICS nations got to 4.62 trillion won, which is about $648 a year in the first 9 months of 2024, showing a 5.1% year-over-year rise. China is still a major producer of machinery and electronics that are goods, while bringing in essential goods like natural gas, oil, and farming goods from its brick-and-mortar competitors. China has worked hard to push the adding more BRICS to include some other growing economies. This move by Argentina and Saudi Arabia fits with China's plan for there was an emerging multipolar world order. Markets have more power over the new. The BRICS set up a development bank. Has also given important money to building projects in member states. Even more business growth worked together over the last 20 years. The way China and the United States has been through transformations that were marked by rapid growth is making things more tense and changes in strategy. This study gives a wide-ranging look at these changes, pointing out important changes and their early 2000s fast growth, what it means, and China's entry into the WTO in 2001. Becoming a member of the WWT, the organization marked a turning point, making it easier for it to fit into the world economy. This move caused a rise in trade between the US and China, with American businesses making money off of China's ability to make things. By in 2005, the US bought more from China than reached twice as many people as in 2001. Mostly about $43. 55's getting worse trade deficits in the years that followed. Trade grew. Being unfair to China, by 2010, the US trade it had grown to a $273 gap with China billion, which shows how important mismatch in the trade of goods. China's exports electronics were the main goods sent to the US. Tools and linens, while the US sent to China included soybeans and cars. 2018-2019 price increases of trade disputes make the trade relationship worse. Reached a tense point during the Trump regime in 2018. In the US put taxes on $50 billion worth of goods, Chinese goods, saying that trade is unfair habits. China responded with tariffs on American goods, which caused a rage rise in FORTAT. By the end of 2019, tariffs had an impact on hundreds of billions of dollars in two-way trade, which is hurting costs going up and supply lines for businesses and people. In 2020 Phase 1 trade deal in January 2020, both the Phase 1 trade deal was signed by countries, during which China promised to buy an extra $200 billion worth of us 2 years of goods and services. However, despite this understanding, the COVID-19 virus and existing taxes made things harder. Following through on these promises, 2021 to 2023, still present issues and policy changes during the Biden administration. A lot of taxes stayed in place, with a continued work on solving problems such as stealing original work and a way to get into the US market. In 2023, there was a $279 billion gap with China, less than the $418 billion it was in 2018. Showing some changes in the way trade works. 2024, the present and the future. What the trade looks like in 2024. The link between China and exports to the US have been strong. That goes up a lot. In October 2024, it went up by 2.16% to $47 billion, from not the year before, but the US keeps looking closely at trade practices as people talk about taxes and rules for trade on China's exports are still growing, and position in the world market will stay on an upward trend that defies many limits and fees put in place by other countries, even though major economies, especially the US, to stop China from being the biggest trader through other than taxes, penalties, and because of protectionist policies. The effects have largely fallen short of what they set out to do. Instead, these limits have had often backfired, making costs go up for people and companies in the imposing countries and messing up global supply. Shows how well China can change to adapt to changing market situations by improved trade and expand exports. How to deal with rising economies in South and the BRICS countries have added to its strength, with record trade profits kept building up. Infrastructure changes in strategy and investments into areas with a lot of growth, like green technology. China depends on exports. The business plan continues to do well. There's a pattern that it might be time to think again about how well trade works. As a long-term plan, limits instead of putting in place bans and taxes that upset the balance of the world's economies. Countries could gain from taking part in frameworks for working together that are fair conflict with each other's growth. China's world trade leaves behind more than just it's a story of strength and determination. How connected everything is in modern businesses and the need to work together. Solutions in a world that is becoming more multipolar world. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching this video. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you found our information useful or given you ideas, please think about letting them know you support them by liking it and signing up to stay in touch with our community.